I was going to show you something I kind of found interesting. I don't mean to go on about these axe heads, but I found this interesting. You know, I was waiting for them to get a little bit of rust on them. Now, this Marshall Wells one is rusting up very nicely. Then I'll just take some steel wool and polish off the coarser rust before I dye it. But what I thought was interesting, you know, these Marshall Wells, the company that was making them for Marshall Wells was a Canadian company that supposedly used a Swedish steel. You know, not uncommon for this sort of thing. Well, this one took rust very well. But the other one is a kind of a mystery. You know, this has been rained on and set out in the sun and rained on again and again, you know. And it really doesn't rust. You know, there's just a very small amount of rust, and that generally just wipes right off. No, they've both been treated the same with a vinegar and with a wire brush and stuff. And particularly in a spot like say here where I took that burr off where I ground it, you would think that would rust right away. But it doesn't. Well, my only thought would be that this particular steel, you know, like I say, this is an older axe head. Maybe not as old as this one, but you know, not current production. And I have a suspicion some of the Canadian ore has a lot of nickel in it, and it makes a sort of a like a semi-stainless sort of metal. Kind of like, you know, like a lot of the old Winchesters were made with high nickel content steel. And they don't tend to rust. I mean, the bluing wears off, and they just kind of polish up to this kind of color. You know, they don't rust. And I'm beginning to think that that's what this has to be, made with that Canadian ore. You know, I'm not that far from Canada, so things tended to work down this way. In fact, this area was actually settled from the north. You know, people kind of get confused that way, but things here tended to come from up in what is now Canada. So that could very well be the thing on this one. Just a puzzler, you know. I thought it was interesting because this is what you expect anytime you have a bare steel like that. It's going to get a coating of rust on it just from the dew even. You know, if that bare metal sets out, it's going to rust. But this one, I've decided I'm not going to dye this one. What would be the point? I mean, it seems to be pretty rust resistant as it is. But that's what I suspect. I suspect it's a high nickel content. I just thought it was interesting. You know, because this is really what I expected this one to do the same, if not more. Just a little surprised. But pleased in a way. Like I say, this is actually a very nice axe head. And it wasn't all that beat up. But it's got no markings on it whatsoever. But like I say, that's really not unusual. You know, people really didn't get into the... You know, now every time anybody makes something, they got to have their name on it. But at that time, they were just more concerned with making good stuff. And I think that's a very good axe head. You know, I'm sure this one's fine too. You know, and it'll be perfect for what I want to do with it. But you know, my intention was to dye both of them with that trap dye. I'm just not going to do this one. I don't see the point in it. I think that will just naturally stay rust-free. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, for the $2 or $3 I paid for it, the thing is kind of giving me a little education.